Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Britney Gardner. Say hi.
Hi.
I told you we were going to jump right into
that. You did.
For those of you who have been following the show for a while, you know, I always jump in with a usually pretty simple and straightforward intro, contrary to a lot of shows that do these big, like long drawn out introductions. No shade against those, but I really wanted to keep it casual with a, you know, at the bar or a coffee shop feel. So I often surprise my guests by just jumping right in and being like, hey, tell us about what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of cut the opening podcast time where, let's be honest, if you're listening in the car, you're like, plus 30. Oh, yep. No, now we're at the topic. So I appreciate that. Yep. But yeah, who I am, what I do. I'm a content strategist. I help established, sophisticated businesses with organic, evergreen content strategy in between launches. Ooh. And why I do that, we'll probably get to in my story in a little bit. But specifically, I really think that a lot of people are just leaving people out in the cold the way they're currently handling their content. And I want to be a part of helping that.
Nice. Sorry to like all over the top of you there, but like I love that because I think it's so easy when you're doing the work, doing the fulfillment, planning the next thing. It's kind of easy to lose sight of the in between. And then suddenly you're at promo time, your time to make the offer and realizing that nobody's heard from you for months. I just realized that myself, that one, holy cow, how is it already March? Two, why is it still snowing in half of the states in March? As we're recording this is going to release in a couple months. But like, yeah, I feel like I blinked and the holidays have gone and March is here. So having a plan to keep in touch, I think will reduce the likelihood of you just falling off the face of the earth in between promos. And I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And truly, you know, no shade to people who get busy and that happens too. I'm not saying, oh, you're a bad person. Yeah. But I do think that you're probably losing a good chunk of your audience because they're like not that engaged to begin with. They hadn't quite gotten over the hump of like actually knowing you. Mm-hmm. And then you just disappear, right? So you have to restart that whole trust building process all over again next time you launch. And one, there's a better way for you because that's not doing your business any favors. But two, you could be like alienating people. And I know we've all been on the being ghosted like side of things and personal relationships. So just know that there might be people out there feeling that way about you and your business. And there are ways to combat that aren't that hard. So
absolutely. I love that too. And, you know, that ties in perfectly to something that I hear a lot of people struggle with when they do fall off the map. And I am going to, you know, definitely co-sign what Brittany said. That does not make you a bad person. All of us do it. Even the most, like the biggest name pros I have seen do this. That is not a business killer, but it's something to keep an eye on if you want that steady, predictable growth that we're all after, right? Don't make it harder on yourself than it has to be. So have a plan in place so you don't fall off the map. And there was something that you said earlier that was so brilliant that I really wanted to emphasize because you talked about we all fall off the face of the earth and there is some trust building to be done there. But by the same token, when you jump back in, you don't necessarily need to start from square zero and you don't have to like explain why you were gone or justify that or even make a really big deal. Just practice that consistency and keep getting yourself out there. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done this twice in my business. One time where I disappeared for over a year. I mean, it was intentional. Goodness. It was an actual intentional choice. Mm-hmm. And then another time was just about this time last year. I stepped back, shall we say. And a casual observer might not have noticed that I wasn't as present because I had scheduled things ready to go because I practice what I preach, right? But I was certainly not as engaged. So I've done it in both ways in the past, and I've seen people come back and make a formal official announcement like, "Hey, you haven't seen me a whole lot for the last 3 months. Here's why." And people I love and respect, I've seen do this, and I think they've done it really well. It's not something I probably would do. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. When I deliberately left for a year, I did. I came back and I was like, all right, time's up. I'm back, because I had made an announcement about leaving, right? But if you're just like realizing, oh no, it's been 2 months since I posted on Instagram. If it's just that, don't make an announcement. Just start posting again. It's okay. There is no person out there who's never gotten overwhelmed. There's no person out there who hasn't dealt with something that took their focus away from their business for a brief time period. So just get back to it. If you want to come back with a bang, make a really cool piece of content and talk about it ad nauseum for 2 weeks so that you get back in the groove. It helps you rebuild that muscle, right?
I love so many things about what you said there. Especially about just getting back into the groove if it fell off your radar versus making a big scene out of it. Now, what you did, I thought, was brilliant because you made an announcement saying that you were going to take a break. So, of course, you would make an announcement telling people that you're going to come back. Like, that is a strategic use. You could probably build in some of what you learned from your time off into that. Hey, I'm back. It's the comeback. Yeah. But if you just forgot for a couple months and then realized, holy crap, it's been 2 months, I need to post something. Just jump back in there, start swimming laps. We're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit more about how you got started in content strategy.
Yeah. So the not horribly long, but not entirely short story is I started out in photography. I was a portrait and wedding photographer for well over a decade. And then after starting a family, I realized other people take their kids to soccer games on Saturday, and I'm never going to be able to do that. And it wasn't feeling, I was also traveling. I was traveling cross country, out of state, out of the country, even sometimes for weddings. And it was just becoming very difficult. And I realized that was just not the way I wanted to lead my life. So I moved into branding photography because it was a nice, easy, pivot, if you will. And I did enjoy that. I had a good time with it, but all of my brand photo clients came back and they're like, these photos are beautiful. They're amazing. They tell my story, but like, what do I do with them?
Oh, goodness.
And my heart dropped because I realized photos are a great part of your brand strategy, but they are not your brand. And I started giving small pieces of advice on content strategy, small pieces of like how you use these in social posts to build up your know, like, and trust factor. And that kind of ended up taking over my business to the point where I've, in the last couple of years now, only done, 2 or 3 sessions at all. I do still own photo equipment. And if I like you, I'll probably still photograph you. But it's not something you can even find on my website at this point because I found my sweet spot in content, and I've been in that mode for about the last 4 to 5 years. And I like content because it does do that know, like, trust build up that we talked about earlier. I like content because it's not something that has to be constantly redone. You can find things that work really well for your business. I call that evergreening content. That's how I got into content. I would actually argue that I'm a little obsessed about making people see how much content can do for their business at this point.
I love that. I don't even know where to start. I wrote so many good notes. First, okay, I'm going to circle back to the journey, which was, I see a lot of creative freelancers in particular struggle with this, that they don't know what they don't know. And so they're afraid to even try. So I thought it was really awesome that you jumped into wedding photography and were like, I like this. This is something I'm really good at. I can make some memories for these people. Let's go for it. Then you get into the thick of it and realize this isn't quite what I wanted. There's a conflict here. I'm not going to be able to achieve the things that I want to do with my family, spend some quality time with them if I'm giving all of my attention to my business in this way. And that's just the way this particular business works. The nature of it is it's mostly weekends because of how weddings work, right? And so you pivoted. And I think a lot of folks think that that's really like hard or difficult, and I think that ties into what you were talking about with getting the photography and the branding done, but then not really knowing what to do with it. They start to imagine that like all of these problems are going to be solved just by doing this one thing. And you realize, no, it's always going to be a series of problems. I'm going to choose this path. I'm going to set on down it. There's going to be a rock in the way that forces me to go around and figure out another direction. And a lot of times that direction winds up being even better. I know that we took like a windy path to get to the point, but the point is choose a path, do the thing, try it for a while, see where it leads. And it's okay to change your mind and decide that this is not right for you. Even if you change your mind tomorrow, just pick a path and start moving. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to point out one thing which I didn't address. I listened to what people were saying. It'd be really easy. And I have good friends who are still doing brand photography. So this is not a dig on them, but I have good friends who do a fantastic job with the photos. That is their business. They made that their business. But when I heard my people coming to me and saying, this is great, but what do I do with them? There were two things I heard. One, you did such an amazing job and I want to be happy with them, but I'm not entirely happy because I feel like I'm unfulfilled still. And I didn't want people feeling that way about my work. The other thing I heard was there's an opportunity here. And the opportunity for me is a lot more hands-on with content. I also, when I heard that, I will be real honest, I had just had my second kid. Nursing wasn't going well. I was pumping, nursing, and I had to figure out how to do that during a few all-day branding shoots, which was kind of torturous.
Challenging.
Like, you know what I mean? So, I also won't lie. It was, again, for my lifestyle, a little bit more flexible. And it's not that I couldn't have made brand photography work for me, but I found something that I was also good at that I felt like I could fully serve my people with and allowed me to keep up that awful pumping schedule. So, like there was that. So, but I really want to stress there. I heard what people were saying and I chose to listen. It doesn't mean you have to. Sometimes you hear feedback that people aren't happy with something or you wish that people wish you had done something a different way and you choose not to go down that path because you're like, no, I'm solid in what I do. And that's also okay.
Yeah. I love that. That distinction I think is really important because there is often an opportunity in the unhappiness. Like if somebody brings a challenge to you, a struggle to you, exactly like you said, I have all these lovely photos. I don't know what to do with them. Content strategy. Heck yeah. If you don't consider yourself to be a content strategy and you want to stay focused on the branding or the photos, whatever you're doing, that is also perfectly valid because that's how you do. In that case, I would recommend if somebody comes to you and says, I don't know what to do with this, well, then you make friends with Britney and you say, I know this amazing strategist that can help you use these brand photos. Let me make an introduction. And this is where the strategic partnerships come into play. It's fantastic.
Yes. Friendship slots open. If anyone wants to contact me, we're good.
We're always expanding our friendship circles over here at Permission to Kick Ass. That's just the way we do business. But I love all of this. And I wanted to go back to, because you started to talk about following the signs and embracing this process. And I too am on board with this idea of no time spent creating content is ever wasted. And I think where a lot of us get lost and overwhelmed when we're trying to promote our business, when we're trying to keep up this content production schedule, is this idea that we have to create everything from scratch. And that winds up shutting people down. So you mentioned that thing, evergreen, and I kind of wanted to dive into that a little bit deeper if you're willing to follow me down the path.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, when you're in that spot and you don't really know how to use that work, you don't have that proper strategy, it's almost a shutdown point because you can't possibly imagine how to get started with this mountain of work staring at you. And a wonderful strategist like Britney can help you understand that it's not really a mountain, it's a little anthill that you could step over. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you discovered this repurposing and dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So my youngest is 5 now. And the year-long break I mentioned earlier was when I decided to have a kid. I wanted to be really healthy during my pregnancy. And then, the newbornhood stretched on forever, as previously mentioned. And so I took a nice long break there. But one of the reasons I wanted that break because I could have worked while I was pregnant. It's not like I wasn't capable, right? I was in busy work mode at the time. And I felt like I was doing all of this time intensive work that didn't necessarily lead to direct revenue. And I'm not trying to say everything you do has to have a dollar sign attached to it, but we're in business. We have to make money. And I knew when I came back, when my son was 8 months old, something like that I didn't want to be in that feeling again. I didn't want to feel like I was just doing all these things just to maintain status quo. And that is what led to the evergreen content strategy that I teach and I do for my clients now. Here's the deal. You are sitting on a mountain of content. Even if you've been in business for all of 3 months, you are sitting on a mountain of content. Your mountain might be that anthill size rather than that, backyard, like rolling, meadow or whatever, but it's still a lot. The problem with most people's mountains is that they're not one mountain. They're a hill over here, a hill over there, a cave down over that way, and good luck putting it all together. So I'm a big fan of content databases. I've talked about it when I did a content database workshop recently. I literally said content databases aren't sexy, and here's why you need one anyway. And I know it's not like a fun topic, but you need a place to aggregate all of your gold. And I mean gold literally. The content you have put out in the past is gold you can mine again and again and again if you have it organized and if you know how to put it out there. And I'll tell you guys, I fall into this every so often too, where I'm like, oh, look at that thing I did a year ago. Facebook memories for the win. I'm brilliant. Look how smart I was a year ago. And you need to find a way, a system of sorts in your business for you to use this. And even though I talk about this, even though I set it up for other people, I still surprise myself sometimes. So again, we're all in this together. But when I came back to business, when my son had gotten out of that newborn stage and everything, I was like, there is no way I'm going to just spend my time recreating things I've already made. I need to find a way to get the most bang out of my content buck, if you will, and make sure I'm not just doing busy work. So yes, I have topics. I have topics that have worked well for me in the past. I know this because I measure them. I'm a data geek. And if you don't like data, that's fine. I can do it for you. But you got to measure what's working for you to know what is worthwhile reposting, right?
Sorry to jump in like that. I hate that concept of folks that are like, throw spaghetti at the wall. Yes, throw spaghetti at the wall, because experimentation is how we find really interesting new paths to travel, and we get new attention, new eyeballs. And also measure the spaghetti that's stuck on the wall. How long was it? How long did it stick? What kind of sauce were you using? Figure out how to make more stick, my friends. Don't just throw it and then constantly be guessing. And then I loved what you said about repurposing and finding a way to track it. I'm very ADHD, have not always been the most organized person on the face of this earth. And I have recently come to understand how much tracking plays an invaluable part in all of this. Not just the data analysis, but just knowing where you put everything. Because we get so bogged down in the day-to-day of running business that it's easy to forget you even wrote something. I've been encountering this over and over again in the last 6 months as I grow my business with my partnership, where it's like we're talking with a consulting client who has a particular problem with marketing or a launch or an offer. And I go, oh man, oh wait, no, I think I have something for this, but I don't. You know what? I'm going to have to get back to you after the call. I believe I have a tool on this, but I totally forgot about it until we started talking about it. So being able to pull those things up fairly quickly when you need them, not having to reinvent the wheel all the time because you know that you've already got it. All wonderful things.
I want to say that there's a real benefit in actually forgetting some of your content and then revisiting it later. Because sometimes you posted something 6 months ago or 6 years ago, whatever, right? And you have different perspective on it now, right? You've worked with more people. You've learned more along the way. And you can reuse it in multiple ways. There's, recycling it where you literally just repost it as is. There's regurgitating it where you put a little bit of a different spin on it. You can add a new hook. You can add a new story.
Mm-hmm.
And, your new perspective on this particular topic may give your audience who didn't resonate with it the first time because it just didn't hit them. It may actually reach that segment that you couldn't reach before. So there is benefit in forgetting about things and then coming back to them. And there are things you can set up in your business to kind of give you those reminders so that you don't have to depend on your Facebook memories, right?
That's what I've been doing to write my book.
It's real. It's real.
Oh, that's great. And it's interesting because I had somebody recently that was really struggling with figuring out what to do to promote her business. And she kept getting stuck in this cycle that I think a lot of us get stuck in from time to time, which is thinking that everything that we post has to tie back to a business or an offer, or always has to, exactly like you said earlier, always has to tie back to the bottom line, which to an extent it does. But that had the effect of kind of putting a brick wall down between her and actually posting regularly, because she just could not make this idea fit in this nice, neat little box that wound up with an offer at the end. And I threw out this idea that I try and use myself that's really helped me when it comes to posting, which is, and I wanted to get your take on it. So that's why I'm going down this shiny little path here. I told her, the reason that my partner says that I'm so good at social media, even though I'm not ever really promoting anything directly through my social media, is I'm just sharing observations. And I'm noticing when something frustrates me, when something has put an obstacle in my path and I'm kind of suffering a little bit and I'm trying to get unstuck. I've noticed when something is funny or absurd to me. I've noticed when something is beautiful and I just had a little moment of, oh man, to be alive right now on this big, beautiful planet. And I just saw something beautiful I have to share with you. And so I told her, if you're getting stuck and everything has to be a business lesson, why don't you just try posting for a while about stuff that really just makes you feel like a human, and seeing if you can get people to resonate with you that way. And damn, if that just didn't open the floodgates. I don't know. Have you ever tried something like that?
I have. I don't want to be all promo here. I have a free offer, like an email option, and I call it the Chaos Free Content Balancing Plan. And I'll give you the quick and dirty rundown of it, because I think it ties in really well with what you're talking about. But basically, the old wedding adage, old, new, borrowed, and blue, like you're supposed to wear, one of those things. I treat content the same way. So old, well, we've already covered that. That's repurposed content. However you're repurposing, right? Whether you're just reposting or adding a new perspective, that's old. New, that's something new. Usually, are you going to tie it to an offer? Probably. Doesn't it have to be? No, it doesn't. Borrowed, that is me giving my take on someone else's content. So, maybe you are posting a really good, podcast. It hits my podcast app and I hear it and I'm like, oh my goodness, you all need to head over to Permission to Kick Ass. Angie just interviewed this person and this was said, and I had this whole brainwave about it. And now I'm thinking about this, right?
Love it.
I love that borrowed content because, one, I'm sharing good people's work. I mean, that's just a nice, good karma move, right? But also, when someone else's idea sparks my own, I have a real big stickler, a moral stickler, that I need to give credit where credit's due.
Yes.
I didn't come to any of the things I teach or talk about on my own. They were all sparked by someone else. And if I can provide that spark to other people, I am setting forth a good ripple, out in the world. So that's the borrowed. And then we get to my favorite category, which is blue, or if you want to think about it as out of the blue, right? If you are in a creative rut and you don't know what to post, go post something blue. Go find something
literal
interesting. Blue? I mean, it doesn't have to actually be the color. Although if that's a good creative boost for you, I say go with it. Use that juice, right? Sometimes it's something funny one of my kids does. And I'm like, they just did this thing. And I can't help but thinking if all my clients did that, I would be so happy. And that one thing, I mean, I probably could tie it into a business offer if I really tried hard, but sometimes just the idea of it gets me out of that creative rut. I have 2 Lego builders in my house, and I cannot tell you how many Lego models give me good ideas about something for my business. It's ridiculous. And, there's so many cooking lessons I end up tying into my business, so many fitness lessons I end up tying into my business because it's something I observed and I'm like, And whenever you have that moment, you've got to like write it down because
yes,
it ties back into the work you do in some way. You might not want to know what it is today, but throw it into an ideas folder, throw it onto, a spreadsheet, a Trello board, whatever works for you, because it's going to become part of something at some point. And that out of the blue content really can pull you out of that, blank white cursor. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do here today? Situation.
Ah, I love this. So many fantastic things. I'm going to unpack a little bit of it. First of all, credit where credit is due, I think is amazing. And I want everybody to start shouting this from the mountaintops because I think it's going to destroy this false belief that a lot of us started with. I know I'm definitely talking about myself here, but thinking that the only way that I can get out there and build a business and build a name for myself is if I come up with the only 100% unique, never been heard of before, newly discovered strategy by Angie Coley. And that's not how this works. There's like 7 stories. There's like only a handful of business models. And really all of the variations that you see are from people's unique spins, their unique background, their unique insight into it. Like the reason that we have millions of different approaches to a different problem is because you are a unique individual whose perspective is lovely and valuable and needed by this planet. So stop thinking that you have to come up with something original. I love borrowed as a content concept. Talk about when you're feeling stuck. Go find somebody else to lift up and be like, oh my God, they blew my mind. Let me tell you about what I learned from Britney Gardner today. You are going to love it. You're going to be thanking me later. Go listen now. You look like a well-connected, in the know genius who's a source of valuable nuggets. Just letting you percolate on that one a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, find a quote, tell why that quote matters to you, and then share what you're going to do with it. Mm-hmm. If quotes are not your thing, if you're, like a reader, I am one person who's guilty of downloading lots of business books on my Kindle and then reading a third of them and then never coming back to them. So go read another chapter, right? Go read another chapter, figure out what part of it resonated with you, and then talk about it. Like you can do a whole live on that. You could do a quick reel. You could do a LinkedIn post. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be this incredibly well-planned thing. It can just be you sharing what's inspiring you today. That's okay.
Yes, I love that. Ooh, and I'm making a note to do this maybe later after the show. I just remembered that if you go into your Kindle file, if you have a Kindle, because I do too, it saves all of your highlights.
It does.
And you can just go check out the things that you've highlighted and make a quick post about that. And that brings me to another point that I think stops people when it comes to self-promotion, and I think ties into what you do so wonderfully, is so many people don't plan ahead and they don't really think about it. It winds up in this kind of cart before the horse situation where we're always sitting down going, shit, I got to promote today. I got to say something, but I don't know what to say. And so we're kind of cobbling something together that's good enough without really thinking about it. Where if you could develop a system that works for you, right? Because we're all unique individuals and what works for me may not work for you. But like I have to batch create. Because if I batch create, it's not going to happen. I just have 100 little tasks throughout the day that have to get done. And adding one more, even if it's 5 minutes, is going to cause this whole thing to come tumbling down. That's exactly how I wound up at I record podcasts on Wednesdays. And whenever anybody asks me, could you do like a Thursday morning? Could you do like a Monday night? The answer almost always, with some exceptions for folks that are overseas and like, wonky time schedules and stuff like that. But it's almost always no. Because to set everything up on a Thursday, to set everything up on a Monday, and have to do that in the middle of everything else I'm doing just interrupts the flow so badly. I mean, not saying that being on this show is like a bad thing or anything like that, but switching gears like that it's not a thing that I can do really well. And so to bring my energy to these shows, I had to block out a day where this is the day that we record all the shows. And then the bonus to that I didn't anticipate was if I get sick, if I have a day where I can't record, or I've canceled before when I had a conflict or like a personal emergency, or when I didn't feel like I could bring energy to help someone shine in their knowledge, I would cancel a recording. And the show will go on. It's amazing. And that's one day a week, one afternoon. So it's totally possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I quoted a statistic on a sales page a while ago, and I'm not going to remember the numbers exactly right now, but I want to say it was an Adobe study, and the average small business owner is spending, 8 to 10 hours per week marketing their business. And content is a part of that marketing, right? And I started thinking about that, like 8 to 10 hours a week. I work less than 20 hours a week right now, just given like my current life and schedule and everything. But if I were spending 8 to 10 hours a week marketing my business, like that's half my time,
Yeah.
And you have to be real with what you're willing to do and capable of doing. And, like lots of studies have said, every time you switch tasks, you lose like 20% of your efficiency. I think, for neurodivergent people, the number's probably going to be higher, just given my personal experience there, right? And if you know that doing this thing on this day works for you, like that's what you do. This is how you become a good business person, by knowing who you are and how you do it. So the same needs to extend to how you handle your content. If you know doing, a 5-minute post 3 times a week is just not getting done in your business right now, you need to look back, reverse engineer a little bit and say, well, what would work in my business? And if batching is good for you, then please, for the love of God, batch.
Yes.
Like, batching is not good for you. Like I do really poorly if I'm trying to plan content 4 weeks out, because a lot of times my interests by the time I hit that 4 weeks later may have changed a little bit, right? But my main content is planned out usually 3 months in advance. What I actually do with it each week is not, but my main topics are. And for me, for my business, that is successful. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do things.
I love that. It sounds like you like a lot of that out of the blue content creation strategy that you advocate.
I don't. It's so funny.
Oh.
Like I know it's so bad. I actually like having my main topic planned. So that's the new topic. Is it sometimes repurposed and moving into old? It is. I like having that all planned out. What I do with it each week is somewhat spur of the moment, but it's not out of the blue. It's not like outside of my normal content, buckets. It's not off topic for my business. I tend to do that out of the blue stuff as Instagram stories. Like, check out this. This is what's happening today.
Nice.
If you look at my Instagram stories today, like as we're recording this, my husband sent me a Facebook memory via Facebook Messenger. And it was me sitting in a first class lounge. It was the first time I ever flew first class. We were flying home from India, where we had been. This is 12 years ago. And I'm holding a glass of wine. It's tilted. It's not even straight, because I'm so drugged up on whatever herbs and drugs the Indian pharmacist gave my husband. He didn't understand the concept of cold medicine. And I had a really nasty, like deep chest infection. I think the air quality out there just like hit me hard. And I spent like all but 2 hours of my only, at that point, first class flight completely zonked out. I have no memory of the entire experience. And you look at this picture, you're like, she looks high. And I probably was. I mean, I don't know what I took, like it was definitely a lot of herbs. So who knows? But, I didn't spend a whole flight miserable. And that's like, to me, that's out
Silver
of the blue
lining.
content. Like, right. So, that's the kind of stuff I end up posting out of the blue. I really like including a personal aspect in my social world. I am a social person. You are a social person.
Yes.
Even the most introverted person out there can be social by just sharing a few things that amuse them here and there, Yeah.
And that's interesting to me too, because I know that when we talk about content strategy a lot, there is this, and this has been coming up, so it's like nice and synchronous. There is this misconception that you have to share something super personal, in that like it almost makes you uncomfortable to share this kind of super personal in order to build a genuine connection. And you're sharing this, that might be mildly embarrassing, but it's mostly humorous, that like, look at me drugged out on this thing. I'm a big fan of that kind of content too. I'm not great at Instagram stories, but like yesterday I shared one of, I'm a 90s child. I'm going to date myself. My sister sent me a reel with a clip from a Bone Thugs and Harmony song, which when they get started rapping, you really can't understand what they're saying. So somebody had put like ridiculous lyrics over it, like hippopotamus or something like that. And I was just laughing because I was like, okay, this actually does sound like they're saying hippopotamus in the middle of Crossroads. I'm going to post this because I just find it funny. There was no call to action. There's not even a hashtag, I don't think. I was just like, ha, my inner 90s child is delighted right now. And that's it. That was my out of the blue shit.
But you know what? It shows something of you to your people. Is it going to be the thing that makes someone hire you? I mean, likely not. But what it will do is for other fellow 90s children, especially people who might know that song or have like memories, like sitting in the car trying to figure out what they were saying, right? It cements you in their memory. And this is what this is the goal of content, is to build that know, like, and trust factor, right?
Yes.
So if they already know you and you post something like that and they like you just a tiny little sliver more, they are more likely to remember that you are someone fond, in their world. And the next time you post something that's hard hitting or like really challenges them to grow a little bit or gives them like a new shift in perspective, you will start becoming a person in their mind that is someone to pay attention to. And ultimately, it is not you posting the Bone Thugs and Harmony song that caused them to hire you, but it did cause them to pay attention to you, and attention is currency. So, that's the kind of thing that I like including. I help people with not that part of their content strategy. Yeah. I help them with the things that do shift perspective, that do really, push people over the hurdle to hire you. But I can't help you, not really, with being a person.
Yeah.
I can encourage you. Hey, post something like personal. Before you and I started recording this, we both like threw our water bottles up like, hey, don't forget to hydrate. So our voices sound good on this recording.
Our weird connection with fairy hair. That was delightful.
Yeah, exactly. Like those are the kinds of things that I'm going to remember about you. And as I see you out there on the interwebs, it causes me to pay just a tiny bit more attention. Right. And those are the kinds of things in content that you can't necessarily plan. I mean, that's wrong. You can plan. I just feel like they're better spur of the moment.
I love that you said attention is currency, because we're deciding where to spend it. And that's exactly how I want you to think of this. You out there listening, we're choosing where to spend our currency. And that is great news for you, because how many times have you stopped yourself from doing something because you feel like you just stepped onto a stage into the spotlight where everybody is watching and they're just waiting for you to mess up? The great news is, especially when you're first starting out, is that they're not paying that much attention. They're distracted by that. And that's exactly why I love repurposing, like to go all the way back to the beginning as a content strategy, because odds are no single one person saw anything that you posted like the last time that you posted. So posting it again isn't repeating yourself necessarily. The second or third time you post it might be the first time somebody else sees it. Or you can post it with that, like last year, I believed. Now I understand it in a different way, exactly like Brittany said. And you're bringing in a whole new group of people just by repeating yourself over and over again. So I guess, if there's any point to that just random side ramble that I added in there, it's don't fall into that trap of thinking that you have to constantly be churning out new stuff in order to get people to spend their attention currency with you. If you have just a few like core principles and things that you believe in, that pillar content, and you hammer on that over and over and over again, you become easier to pay attention to because they know you. Angie is that weird redhead with the fairy hair who has that show Permission to Kick Ass and talks about Bone Thugs and Harmony for some reason that we don't understand. And her cat's always photobombing everything. Yeah, we know, Angie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of like business colleagues, I would call them, like online friends, right? That I have that I know them as the thing, right? Like you might be the person who's like the girl who gets, cat photobombed, right? Eventually they become something else, but you still remember that, there's also a lot of like online people I don't know personally. Like I've never had a conversation with them, but I followed them for a while. And the first thing I remember about them is it's almost always a personal detail. Oh, that's the girl who always has a Starbucks cup in her hand. Oh, that's the person, and I'm not saying that those things make or break your business. It just gives you a little bit of an edge when it comes to people remembering you.
Exactly. So. I think that's why it drives me so nuts when people, and I include myself in this, so there's no judgment, all love here. When you're first starting out in your business and you kind of overly focus on branding and getting the name of the business just right and getting the logo and the colors just right before you've really gone out there and experimented and found who you are as a business person and what connects you to the people. I know full damn well that there are a bunch of people out there that will never listen to a thing I have to say because I swear. And I am fine with that. They don't like me for who I am. And that's a them problem. That's not saying I'm right. That's not saying they're wrong. None of that. They don't like something that I do that's an essential part of my personality. And I don't have any intention of changing. So I'm going to go out there and focus on attracting the people that either love to friggin' swear, or they don't have a problem with me saying it because they value what I say aside from the swear words and they're not distracted by that. And that's totally cool. But that's not something that I knew when I first went to market, that I'm going to be someone who swears, that I'm going to be someone who I actually, when I first went to market, was very buttoned down and very much like, this is what professional is supposed to be. And that's part of a big reason why this show even exists.
It's, I mean, I'm not someone who swears on purpose. Is that the right way? I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. Do I occasionally swear?
Deliberately or intentionally, but sometimes fuck is just the right word.
It absolutely. Sometimes you just need certain emphasis, right? Yeah. It's not something I do on a regular basis. It's not something that bothers me. I have friends who would be bothered by it, and that's them. And I deal with this with clients sometimes. They're like, I don't know if I want to post that. And I'm like, why? And it ends up being because they think it's going to bother their spouse, their mother, or a friend. And it's a really interesting problem. Everybody has to clear this mindset at some point. And I remind them, I say, you are not in business to serve your mother. She is not your client. Yeah. You are not in business to serve your husband. He is not your client. I don't care which personal relationship we're talking about. They are not the ones who are going to pay you to do the service that you are offering. So your content is not for them. Will they see it? Most likely. I mean, if they're following you, but you need to get over that and understand they were never your best client to begin with.
Yeah.
And it's okay. In fact, it's not just okay. I always tell people your content is a filter, and your filter needs to let the good ones in, your best clients, the people most uniquely matched to the services you offer. And it also needs to block the rest of the people. If you are not offending at least a few people a day, your brand is not strong enough. Yes. And that is a big deal for a lot of people to actually internalize and be okay with. So,
yes, that means occasionally making a stand. And I'm not talking out, going out there and necessarily hanging your political sign or beliefs on things. But if you see, here's an example of something that's a little bit less polarizing. If you're struggling to put a personal opinion out there, what's something wrong with your industry that you can't stand? What's something that's really right with your industry that you think people are like, this is the wave of the future, you should follow that? Look at how that is not a personal political opinion. You could swear or not swear when you say that. You could tell a story or not tell a story when you say that, but you get to share an opinion. And then the people that agree with you will come out of the woodwork, and the people that'll disagree with you, they'll make it known, and you can have fun blocking them.
Yeah. I got a lot of flack. I had a podcast episode for my business like 2 months ago. I don't remember exactly when, but I basically said, hey, if you're going to be a course creator business, someone who has to continually, build your audience, has cohort-based courses, you have to be on social media. And by being on social media, I don't mean you hire someone to post something once a week. I mean, you have to be on social media. You have to engage. You have to do all this. Or you need to pay someone to do all of that for you. Yeah. You can't just not do that. Like the whole posting and running thing, people can tell. And if you think you're building an audience off of that, you're just wrong. And I got a lot of flack for saying that because I, in my typical bold and blunt style, just said it. And there's people out there who don't want to be. They feel that social media is a waste of their time. And that is also an opinion. I have not yet seen any data that allows you to get around doing it, but hey, you do you, right? But you don't get to be mad at me for stating that because I have actual data from both my business and multiple clients' business to back it up.
And I would agree with that. I mean, if you don't want to be on social media and you don't want to, basically reverse that lead flow to where other people are coming to you, what else are you doing to grow your business? the world has kind of changed. And if you stick with the analog, you're in for an uphill battle versus finding a way that you can interact with the social media in a way that works for you. So again, we're not saying join and be online 24/7, but people can definitely tell when you just post and run and don't ever say anything. Those are the ones where you show up on the page and you see 5 million posts from the business leader, the thought leader, business owner, whoever, and no responses, very minimal likes. And it's just like you're screaming into the void. And are people paying attention to that? Yeah, there are people that are paying attention to that. Is that a brand that is making people go, oh my God, where is Britney's sign up link? I need to go work with her right now. Not really.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Speaking of a sign up link to go work with Britney, this has been a fantastic show. Tell us more about how to get that freebie, how to work with you, how to follow you on social media. Drop it all.
Yeah. If you're on social media, I'm hanging out more on LinkedIn than Instagram these days. My name is very easy to search, I should say, for both of them. And if you're interested in that freebie, the chaos-free content balancing plan, where we talk more about the old, new, borrowed, and blue, it's a 5-day email course, just gets dropped to your inbox each day. Or if you're a binger and you love Netflix style watching, you can actually binge through them all on one day, because I like to give people choices. So you can find that at BrittanyGardner.com/chaos-free.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure that they have clickable links in the show notes. It has been amazing having you as a guest. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your sparkly fairy hair with me.
Anytime.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.